Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kevin Petrus. I'm a lieutenant with the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department here in Charlotte, North Carolina. I appreciate your patience this afternoon as we have worked through the situation that we've been dealing with today. There's no doubt that our Charlotte community has experienced a tragedy today. And it's one that, as a law enforcement community, we always know is possible, but we never expect. It never gets easier. We're going to do our best to answer your questions today, to provide details, to be transparent about the events of this afternoon. But I do implore you to understand that we're dealing with a tragic loss of life today. And that loss of life is very fresh. There's details that we do not know. There's questions that we frankly just aren't going to be able to answer. We will take your questions. But first, the Chief of Police for the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department, Johnny Jennings, is going to come and give you some information and share his thoughts. I'll spell that for you. Johnny is Johnnny. Last name is Jennings, Jennings. After Chief Jennings, the mayor of the city of Charlotte, Vi Lyles, is going to come and share her thoughts. Vi, V-I, Lyles, L-Y-L-E-S. Chief.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Today's an absolute tragic day for the city of Charlotte and for the profession of law enforcement. Today we lost some heroes that are out to just simply trying to keep our community safe. I'm going to try to go through a series of events of how this all occurred and played out, and then tell you a little bit more about the injuries and the things that we had to endure today as a profession and as a city. So about 1:30 p.m. this afternoon, the US Marshals Fugitive Task Force went to the 5000 block of Galway Avenue in an attempt to serve a warrant on an individual for possession of firearm by a convicted felon. When they approached that individual, they were met with gunfire. Officers returned gunfire and struck the victim, who was later pronounced deceased in the front yard of the residence. As officers approached that individual, they then received additional gunfire from inside of the residence. So after a long standoff, we were able to clear this residence and confirm that there were 2 additional people inside. They were both brought to the police station as persons of interest, and we're trying to determine now what exactly occurred inside of the residence. Tragically, there were 3 members of the US Marshals Task Force who were pronounced deceased, and there were 4 CMPD officers who were shot, one being in critical condition, who is now in the hospital fighting for his life. A total of 8 law enforcement officers were shot by the suspects in this house. So we are very early in the investigation. CMPD will lead this investigation. We still have a lot to uncover, a lot of questions that are not answered right now. So please respect the fact that I won't be able to answer some of the questions that you're going to have. But at the same time, we are going to diligently work on this to ensure that we bring a respect to these officers and these law enforcement officials that lost their lives today. And this is a good example of what we try to tell people every single day, that when we put on this uniform, that we don't have any guarantees that we'll return home. But yet we have a lot of great men and women across this entire country that do it every single day to make sure that you're safe in your communities. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mayor Vi Lyles, so she'll want to say a few words.
I'm just going to put this mic down.
You never know what your day is going to be like. You can't plan things like this to be in this space at this time. We've lost 3 people. They lost their lives after they gave us the opportunity to be in a safe place, and they lost their lives. These are people that care deeply about what they've done for a profession, and now today we have to say to them how much we are grateful for what they have done. We won't know very much about what happened until their investigation is done. But I know this about our community. Our community stands up for people. They stand up for all of the people that work for us, that make it possible, all of our officers. If you had a little bit of problem driving around today, I don't think anybody was too worried about that, because we know that there is a reason for this, and there's a reason that everything happens, and sometimes we don't understand it. But at this point, I know that this community will seek understanding. I know that our police department will seek understanding. I want to say this. We're very, very much grateful. Today I heard from the White House about the loss of our officers and the situation that we were having to adjust to. I've heard from Congresswoman Adams as well as Congressman Jeff Jackson. On the way over here, the Speaker of the House, Tim Moore, and the President of our State Senate, Phil Berger. They all talked about what can they do to help us. Now, we may not know what help we need right now today, but we do know that when people reach out to say this is something that is important that has happened, and they want to be a part of whatever we do, because there will be a time that we will commemorate these people that lost their lives. You think about it. Your father, your husband, your friend, your neighbor, all of them were one person like that. And today they're not going home. You know, 3 people lost their lives today. And the most that I can ask of our community is that we honor and respect them for all the work that they've done, all the work that we will do to make it possible for our city to be safer. Every one of us wants to be in a situation where you get up this morning and get to come back home. And someone didn't today. Keep your prayers, keep your faith. Make sure that these officers who have families have people to reach out and hold them up, because they will need this. And we are a city that will make it possible for them to be this way, to be able to live and know that we honor and respect the loss that they have. Thank you very much for this time.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to take just a moment just to clarify. There was a total of 4 CMPD officers that were struck by gunfire today, and 4 task force officers. That's a total of 8 law enforcement officers who were struck by gunfire today. I want to take a minute to recognize the people standing behind us here today. The first responder community, the government organizations that stand behind me. This is a community within the community, and it's incredible the bond that we have, and it's demonstrated in no other way like it is in moments of crisis and in moments of tragedy like the one that occurred today. So to recognize the people that are with me today, we have the Charlotte Fire Department, Medic, Department of Homeland Security, Federal Bureau of Investigation, Department of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, US Marshals, Mecklenburg County District Attorney's Office, North Carolina Highway Patrol, and I sure hope I didn't leave anybody off the list. But for on their behalf, I want to thank you for being here, and on behalf of all the men and women that they represent who answer the call, especially when tragedy strikes, I want to thank them. Any questions that you have, Chief Jennings and Mayor Lyers are available.
Chief Jennings, you mentioned that these marshals were serving a warrant for a convicted felon with a weapon.
Yes.
Knowing that they're going into a situation where they know that someone has a weapon, how does that change the way that they respond, if at all?
Well, it certainly changes the response. The question is, how does it change the response when you're going into a residence where someone has a history of having a weapon? And let me just be clear, the U.S. Marshals Service, their fugitive task force is comprised of surrounding agencies. So there are multiple agencies that are involved with the Fugitive Task Force with the Marshal Service. The Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department is a member of the US Marshals Task Force as well. So anytime you are dealing with someone who is a convicted felon and who has been caught previously with a firearm, it does raise concerns and raise awareness when you are responding. So when they do that, part of the reason the task force is such an imperative part of what we do every single day is because they have extensive training and they train together to be able to deal with these kind of situations. It's always going to be something that's on the forefront of their thought process when you're going after Charlotte's most dangerous people. And unfortunately today was something tragic that we never want to see. I never want to stand in front of you today to talk about an incident such something this tragic. It's really heartbreaking. Yes. You know, I'm not ready to tell you all of the agencies. What I can confirm is that 4 CMPD officers were shot. 1 CMPD officer is in very critical condition at this point. We do have to make sure that family members and all of them are notified, so I'm not going to release which agencies they were with the task force. So the question is the number of shooters. Right now, we believe there are 2 shooters involved. Again, we have 2 people of interest at the police station that are being questioned right now. And we have confirmed that the individual that was set up, that we were serving the warrant on, was the individual who fired the initial shots and was deceased in the front yard at the end of all of this. So,
besides the one in critical condition, how were the other 3 of your officers doing?
The other officers, besides the officer that's in critical condition, the other officers are stable. The degree of injuries are varying, anywhere from a graze wound to a wound that requires a little bit more attention, but they are stable and expected to be okay.
And can you say if any of your officers who are shot in this, were they responding patrol officers? Were they SWAT officers?
Yes, I can confirm that we do have a sergeant who is assigned to the task force who was on the scene. That officer immediately called for help. The 3 officers or the 4 officers that were shot are officers who were responding to the scene.
Chief Jennings,
I'll get to you. Yes, sir. Yes.
Scene, can you just tell us what firearms these suspects had, and when you were able to get into that house, were there any other firearms that were found?
That's still early to tell. Right now, we're still doing the investigation in the house. I can tell you it was a high-powered rifle that was involved on the suspect end. Yes, sir.
First of all, my thoughts and prayers are with you and
Thank you.
US Marshals. What can you say about the bravery of the officers who responded to the scene, knowing that their brothers and sisters in blue were actively being shot?
Thank you for that question. So the bravery of our officers that responded to the scene, knowing that they're going into gunfire, is what I've been saying for many years, is in the face of danger, our people step up, and this profession steps up, and that's what we should be defined as doing, because they knew what they were going into and still held their own in attempt to apprehend this suspect. They knew that they had officers that needed help, that needed to be extracted from that location, yet they went in, some getting shot themselves as a result. So the bravery, the heroism, everything that goes down with that defines what our profession is, our people demonstrated that today, and I couldn't be more proud of the response. I couldn't be more proud of the partnerships that we have at every single level of law enforcement, every single level of public safety. I can't say enough about the phone calls, the text messages, the support. And as you heard Lieutenant Petrus say, or the mayor say, that a lot of it is, what do you need? How can we help? And it just, in times like this, that's exactly what we need in these situations.
Chief, in terms of other surrounding areas, law enforcement agencies, can you talk about how many maybe from other counties helped out or federal law enforcement agencies helped out?
Yeah, so the question is how many other agencies are with the Fugitive Task Force or just responded? So the Fugitive Task Force, I don't have the exact numbers. With Charlotte has one member on the Fugitive Task Force as a sergeant, but mainly the surrounding agencies within our surrounding cities and towns are members of that, and we can get you those numbers exactly who is involved.
That actually helped out responding to this, whether it was Gaston County providing the Bearcat or whatever.
Yeah, so the officers who responded to help out, all the federal agencies were on the scene with me, and state agencies. The Mecklenburg County Sheriff's Office was there as well. We had agencies from Pineville to different towns within our county. They sent officers in to answer our calls for service, because we obviously, you can imagine the manpower needs that it was to secure that scene and to do the transports. So they were very helpful to ensure that we did not let our citizens down in responding to those calls for service, and they were very helpful in that. So.
Did you say were there children in the house at the time of this while the warrant was being served?
No children in the house. There was one juvenile that we did get out of the house, though. Yes.
You said the suspect used a high-powered rifle. Can you provide any information on what type of ammunition was used by the suspect or suspects?
Not right now. The type of ammunition, that's still part of the investigation. All of that will have to be looked at as far as when we get into the house. Also recover any projectiles that might have been taken out as treatment to the officers. So there's a lot that we still have to uncover. We're not there yet.
Chief, can you speak to
the choice of the time to execute this warrant, given that there were schools in session? Was that taken into consideration as to whether this was an appropriate time?
So the question is whether this was an appropriate time to serve a warrant. I will tell you. Hold on. I will say, when you're talking about a felon who has propensity to carry a firearm, there is no great time to do it, whether it's in the middle of the night or in the middle of the day. The interest in the Fugitive Task Force was to ensure that this person was brought to justice and taken off the streets, and unfortunately he decided that he was going to respond to that by gunfire at our officers. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any prior histories or calls regarding this place of residence?
I do not right now, but the history of this residence, the history of the individual, all of that will be released very soon. We're going to try to get that information out. We do have a lot of family notifications that we have to make in order to provide more information to each and every one of you about this individual. So. Yeah, so the question is right now, is the shelter in place open? Is the area okay to go back to normal duties? Yes, we're going to be at the residence processing the crime scene probably for several hours. But as far as the lockdowns and closure of roads and all of that, we have opened that back up. The house has been secured, by our officers have been cleared, and now comes the tedious task of ensuring that we collect the evidence and process the scene. Yes.
I just wanted to confirm with you. You said one suspect was shot in that front yard. You mentioned there were two more people inside that house that are now in custody. Are one
Yes.
of those two people the additional shooter, or was there a second victim, or one of those suspects?
Yeah, so the question is about the two other individuals who came out of the house later. I can't confirm right now which one or if either are the suspects in the additional shots that were fired. What I can tell you is that we had the house secured, and the perimeter was secure, and we continued to take gunfire from inside the residence. And after we cleared the residence, there were only two individuals that came out, one 17-year-old juvenile, and then another female who was taken out as well. So
just to confirm, there is only one suspect that is deceased.
One suspect is deceased, yes.
Chief, do you know, and I hate to ask this, do you know if this is the deadliest law enforcement day in Mecklenburg County or Charlotte history?
I cannot. I've been with the Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department for 32 years. I can't remember an incident where 3 law enforcement officers were, and also 3 that were killed in the same incident, as well as 1 in critical condition and additional that were shot and injured. So To me, it's the most tragic one that I've been involved in. I don't know historically. I can't imagine that there's one that's any worse than what we're seeing today.
Chief, what are the questions that your investigators will be working to answer in the coming days, weeks, months?
Well, a lot of the questions that need to be answered, we don't even know what those questions are right now. We have to get a full understanding of why this occurred. And also to uphold the integrity of the investigation, we want to make sure that we check all the boxes that we need to so that we can get a full prosecution in this case if and when it comes down to that. We know some answers, but we still have many that we have to clear up and many that we have to continue to work on until we can really lock down what happened, who was involved, and move on from there. So. I did. I spoke with the governor earlier today. He basically asked me, what do I need? He's here to support. Certainly appreciative of the phone call with him. Unfortunately, I know he would be here if he could right now. He's on his way to come and speak with us, but I did speak with him this afternoon.
Chief, while our prayers are for the families and the community, I am a East Charlotte resident since 1975. I appreciate what the police officers do in our community. Speaking on behalf of the East Charlotte community, I'm prayerful that there will be an increase of the police presence in our area, in East Charlotte.
Yeah, thank you for that. At this point, I'm concerned mainly with taking care of the officers, taking care of their families, and all of that comes into play later on how do we respond to this community. But want to make sure the community knows that we're going to continue to keep them safe. We got a lot of brave men and women out there that are going to continue working in that neighborhood, and they're going to continue to work in the best interest of our community and our citizens. So yes, I'll take 3 more questions. Yeah.
Chief, of the CMPD officers who responded and are injured, how many of those officers were part of the US Marshals Task Force, and how many were responding to the shots and injuries?
Okay, all of the officers from CMPD that were injured were responding to the scene. The one sergeant that we have assigned to the task force was not injured. Yes. I don't know how many total officers were there serving the warrant, so I don't have that. That's from the US Marshals Task Force, that they had a contingency of their task force out there doing this warrant service. Yes.
Speaking. My condolences for you and the police force. I definitely feel like this is a bad, tragic situation that should never take place. In regards to law enforcement and just citizens throughout the state, what can you say could be a beneficial step that could be taken between relations between police enforcement and whether it could be just citizens, felons, or whatever the case may be? What could be done to bridge the gap so a level of this situation will never take place?
Well, I'll be honest with you, whatever gap there is, this level should never get to this place, right? I mean, you can have all the hate in your heart that you possibly can have,